Did you know Graham Platner wrote that women worried about rape need to, quote,
not get so up they wind up having sex with someone they don't mean to.
It's disgusting.
Platner wrote to avoid rape, women should, quote,
act like an adult for sake.
Graham Platner, seriously.
We blame the victim. That's a horrible thing to say.
Disqualifying.
I have not seen this.
He's a bully.
This guy gives off a vibe.
Just no way I could vote for you.
No.
Graham Platner, the closer you look, the worse it gets.
I'm Janet Mills, and I approve this message.
That was an attack ad run by Maine Governor Janet Mills against her primary opponent for the Senate, Graham Platner. Platner is the more progressive of the two candidates, while Mills is very much the establishment Democrat. Platner, to that point, has been endorsed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, while Mills has been endorsed by Chuck Schumer. Gross. And while the attack may have felt harsh, it's hard for Mills to defend the ad as not being intentionally misleading when the women in the video, women who were portrayed as real, average Maine women, were actually establishment Democrats. The women who were in the video were only identified by their first names and last initial, and the ad mentioned which town the Maine women were from. Peggy S., for instance, as she was named in the ad, is actually Peggy Schaefer, the former Maine Dems vice chair. Lynn Bromley is a former Democratic state senator. Jilly Barkley Roy is the director of Emerge Action Fund, which is an organization that recruits and helps Democratic women to run for office. And Brenda Garand is a consultant and former longtime Maine Public Board member. The appearances of these women in the ad, including the blatant attempt to hide who they really are, demonstrated something that progressives are all too familiar with, and that is the fact that the establishment Dems will always have the backing and the might of the establishment Dem party. As the Maine Wire explains, that backing matters because it means Mills enters this primary with more than name recognition and incumbency. She has access to the party's institutional muscle, donor networks, high-level validators, national messaging support, and the implicit blessing of the people who want a disciplined, controllable nominee in one of the country's most important Senate races. In other words, Platner is not just fighting Janet Mills, he is fighting the machine behind Janet Mills. Platner has responded to the ad in a video that he posted to social media. The video is nearly 5 minutes long, and he doesn't deny saying the things that he's accused of having said in Mills' ad. He also says he's not that guy anymore. He said a lot of those things during a dark period in his life when he was suffering from PTSD and a depressive episode. He also said he found relief, growth, and understanding through real community and real relationships, so you can check that out if you're interested. But arguably more important than what Platner had to say about the ad is what the people of Maine, the real people of Maine, not those undercover Dem operatives in the ad, thought of the ad. For one, it's reading as desperate on Mills's part, and you can understand why Mills might be desperate right now. The Maine primary is over 2 months away, but polling from various polling groups from late last year to now shows Platner beating Mills every time, in one case by as much as 38 points. But DropSite just released an article featuring a leaked video of a virtual town hall Mills held with her constituents. They responded to the ad, and the response was not favorable.
That I'm a member of the Me Too generation, and I was offended by your ad, and I would very much like you to run a clean campaign. Like Joe Baldacci said, let's have a positive campaign. I don't think anybody should be attacking another Democrat right before the primary and using underhanded means and using that kind of language. Okay, I think you can talk about what you have done has been wonderful. So speak about what you have done and don't demolish your candidate in such an underhanded way. And I'm sorry, that's not a question. That's a statement.
But I'm happy to. Turn off their mic first. Yeah. I think the voters of Maine have a right to know of the choice in front of them. They deserve to know what my opponent has said and done, and the things he deleted right before he decided to run for the US Senate. Maine people know my record, and they know where I stand, and they deserve to know the same about my opponent. Look, I have prosecuted people for sexual abuse and domestic violence. I have fought for women's rights all my life. These values and principles are core to my existence. They're personal for me. Yes, I've knocked down barriers as the first woman, this and that, but I've also used my platform to tell my story of surviving domestic abuse and to advocate for other survivors and fight for real progress. I haven't seen my opponent out there on those issues whatsoever, ever. My opponent's comments are not just abhorrent, but they are a massive election vulnerability. You know that the Republican national machinery has already offered $42 million they put up there for TV buys for this fall. They will be merciless on whoever is the Democratic candidate. This is about electability, pure and simple.
As the woman stated, it wasn't a question she was asking, but she was making a statement. She had already made up her mind about Mills and the tone of her ad, but also the intent behind the ad. She identified herself as a member of the Me Too generation, and she even sounded like she supported Mills, but even she found the ad to be in poor taste and is begging her establishment Dem candidate to do better. The problem is she won't do better. Maybe she can't even do better. Progressive Democrats are beating establishment incumbents and Republicans across the country, and the Democrats still refuse to learn from the mistakes of the past and move forward with the party. This is just a side note, but even Gavin Newsom, who is expecting to be elected president in 2028 because he has like a strong tweet game against Trump, once admitted that Israel is an apartheid state, only to recently walk back that statement because it was a little too controversial, a little too anti the establishment Democratic Party. They have learned absolutely nothing from Kamala Harris's loss in 2024. What's more is that they refused to learn. They even censored their own audit because it revealed a truth that they were not going to acknowledge either way. Regardless of what the people think of the Democrats' stance on Israel, the Democrats will not move from that position. In response to the ad-related outrage, Mills simply stated that voters have a right to know the things that Platner once said once upon a time. She reminded voters that she did not have a sordid Reddit history, nor does she have any tattoos, controversial or otherwise, so she's just, pointing that out. She didn't really seem to address the tone of the ad, however. And then she pulled the line that establishment Dems love to use. This is about electability, she said, pure and simple, she said. She later would state that Maine voters need to think about who can actually beat Susan Collins, because that is the real problem, and that's what we should really be focusing on in this election. She's saying that Susan Collins is so terrible, almost as bad as Donald Trump, you would think, and trust me, I'm no fan of Susan Collins, that Democratic voters should not take the chance on a candidate actually speaking to the needs and the wants of the people of Maine, because it is simply too risky to rock the boat that much. They need to stick with what they know, even if what they know isn't working for them anymore. They need to just keep electing leaders that aren't trying to shake things up too much, because that sounds like a good plan. Another indication that she is an establishment centrist Democrat is that she takes in big money from big donors, but tries to pretend that she doesn't.
This is a Zoom question from Rob Voucher. Is it on? Governor, how do you feel about national party big money being poured into a specific candidate before the state has a chance to have their own primary and make up their own minds? And do you support, along with that, do you support the Maine Democratic Party's neutrality rule?
I respect, go ahead. I respect their neutrality rule. I don't know what big money you're talking to. I don't have the big money here. I don't have big money from the National Party. What are you kidding me? We were both recruited or asked to run by national Democrats, but I don't think either of us has any big money from any source.
Dropsite is reporting that that simply is not true. On the day Mills announced her Senate campaign, the DSCC formed a joint fundraising committee with her called Maine Senate Victory 2026. There were more instances of backlash against the ad in the town hall, which was only about 30 minutes long, so the fact that it kept coming up as such a point of derision for the attendees, I think, speaks volumes. At one point, Mills stated that Platner had released a similar ad against her early on in the primary race, but the ad she's referring to seems to just not exist. The governor responded by claiming back in October, Graham's very first ad was an ad against me. I didn't go raving about it. He had a bunch of women saying I was too old or something. That was a negative ad. No ad from the Platner campaign currently exists matching Mills' description. In August, Platner launched his run with a 2-minute social media video focusing on affordability. The clip targeted billionaires and corrupt politicians profiting by driving families into poverty and crushing the middle class. There was no mention of Janet Mills in the video, who didn't launch her campaign until October 14th. So I don't know, maybe she took some of it personally since Platner was attacking incumbent elected officials in the ad. But either way, the point is clear. The people want someone who they think will think of them first and think of their needs first, even before they're thinking about the party. American people don't actually care about political parties in any kind of meaningful way. Like, yes, we've been brainwashed and indoctrinated into a left-right system, but if we've learned anything from the Trump era, it should be that the people are simply desperate for someone that will fight for them. A lot of people thought that they had found that fighter in Donald Trump for some reason. Some still seem to think that he is their fighter, even though everything he has done has made their lives more difficult since he's been in office. Some of them are beginning to understand that they'd been duped by a celebrity personality, but the fact remains that they are still looking for a fighter. Is it going to be Janet Mills for the people of Maine? Probably not, and they seem to understand that. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.